Hello, my DevNation friends. Welcome to another Tech Talk. And today's subject, we're going to be discussing these containers. We'll be talking about Docker. And our special guest today, well, he's the youngest member of the Red Hat Developer Advocacy team. And I'm pretty sure he's super excited to be here to be talking about, well, lots of great stuff, including containers. So, welcome, Cedric. How are you?
Hey everybody, doing great, doing great. How are you, Edson?
Yeah, not bad. Actually, I'm super excited because I know that Cedric, for you, we had the pandemic, 2 years without like traveling or going nowhere. And last week in Atlanta at the Great Dev Nexus conference, I think you finally like presented your first talk in person. How did it feel?
I gotta tell you, it was like probably the craziest thing I've ever done. I've never been so nervous before in my life, but it went well. A lot of attendees, and I'm really happy I had the opportunity because I've been doing a lot of things online, but this was my first time like actually doing a talk in person at a conference. So it was amazing.
Cool. Yeah, we had the great feedback from the Cedric session at DevNexus, and luckily for you, he's going to present the same subject today here live. So yeah, we have the same great content, we have the same great presenter, and I'll let Cedric like do his magic and show you some great stuff. So Cedric, today live from Raleigh, North Carolina, and Cary, North Carolina, we're super close to each other. Welcome to DevNation.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Well, I hope everyone's having a fantastic, I guess, noon, morning area time. I'm really happy to be here. I haven't been on the show in about a year and some change, but I've kind of missed, the Dev Nation family. So happy to be back. Again, my name is Cedric Clyburn. I'm a OpenShift developer advocate here at Red Hat, and I think without further ado, let's kind of get started. We're going to be talking about containers without Docker today. There's been a lot of kind of recent developments that have prompted doubts of containers and Docker. So I'll be talking about everything from a rudimentary standpoint to doing an actual demo. And I'll make sure to get these slides out to all you guys who are here today. So thank you for being here. Had the opportunity to present this last week at DevNexus in Atlanta, but I'm happy to present this to you guys today. So what I'm going to be talking about is kind of broken up into three main parts. So firstly, we're going to have a conversation about why we run containers with Docker, but also maybe why not to run containers with Docker. So from a security perspective, because of the Docker daemon and a few other reasons why, we'll start looking at a few alternatives. So how we can kind of break up this big monolithic tool that is Docker into smaller kind of specialized pieces. And then finally, we'll get into a live demo where I'm going to show you guys how you can manage containers, build images, and do a lot more from the terminal. So I'm really excited for all of that here in the next 30 minutes. But a little bit about me, if we haven't met before, my name's Cedric Clapern. I'm an OpenShift developer advocate at Red Hat. I'm also a student at NC State University, Go Pack, that's studying computer science. I love Kubernetes, open source software, and video creation and live streams. So I've worked, if you've been with us for a little while now, I worked on a lot of the Katacoda demos and scenarios. Now those have been transferred to Instruct, but I'm also a regular Red Hat developer contributor. Everything from Tecton, Odo, Podman, Builda, and much more. And then I've got a series on the Red Hat developer YouTube channel called Getting Started With, where I cover complex topics in under 5 minutes and try to show a quick demo as well. So all that's online, and let's get to the big point of why we're here today. Of why run containers without Docker. I think it's important to kind of take a step back and look at this from a macro perspective. So why would we run with Docker, but also without Docker? Seeing as Docker is such a popular container standard, why would we start to think about alternative tools maybe? So although Docker has made huge leaps in the simplification of containers, now it's not the only container engine, and we can create containers without Dockers, and we're going to do a whole lot more today. So fundamentally though, why do we as developers, why do we use Docker? So I think it's a fairly easy question to answer. Docker's been around for a while, almost a decade now. Makes me feel old, and That's pretty crazy. It does everything we need it to. It's easy to pick up. It's easy to learn as a container engine. But why would we think about not using Docker, perhaps? So there's a few reasons why, and we'll talk about that throughout the presentation. But it's important to remember that having alternatives to tools that we commonly use is a good thing, and it kind of fosters and creates some innovation within the industry that's very, very beneficial. All of there are there viable alternatives? That's also a great question. There's a few that we'll take a look at that provide a couple advantages, especially security for running containers. But it's also good to know about these to prepare for the future of container technology. Now, I'll do a quick overview of containers and the benefits of containers real quick. If you're still getting familiar to them, I know I was, containers are a solution and a great solution to how to get software to run reliably when you're moving around to different computing environments. So they're bundling the entire runtime application environment together. So the application dependencies, libraries, and more, allowing you to kind of run this on any different system, regardless of what distribution or what infrastructure you're on. So we've got a few big benefits from less overhead. They're super lightweight. We've got portability. Because of this standardization and containerization, we can run these on any type of different cloud. And then we have consistent operations. So for people like DevOps, they've got more time now with containers because all of the code and processes are prepackaged. So they can do more of what they need to do because of containers. Now, Docker, when it comes to containers, huge impact since 2013 when it originally came out, and has allowed us to kind of move towards more cloud native applications. So it's helped us build these lightweight and portable software containers that simplify our lives, especially as developers. So when we take a quick look at the difference between virtual machines and containers here on the left-hand side, so we've got, say, for example, a virtual machine right here. We've got three, virtual machines with a hypervisor. We've got, three separate operating systems running, taking a lot of, valuable space, resources, memory, all of that. When we take a look at containers, though, we've got this single operating system, and each container is sharing the kernel with the other containers. So it's helping to be lightweight, use less resources, and overall, save a lot of time and money. So the Docker engine, as we can see in the container chart, consists of two different things. So you've got the client, you've got the CLI. So when you're doing a Docker push, pull, any kind of command, you're running through the client. And then you've got the server, which we'll talk about here in a second, the daemon, that does a lot of the commands and a lot of the operation for Docker. So Docker has done a lot, especially in the industry, spearheading the standardization of container technology. And one of the biggest things they did that I want to talk about briefly is they created the OCI, which is the Open Container Initiative. So in the container world, a couple years ago, this was huge in making sure there was this one container specification that could help the industry move forward. So Docker, Red Hat, and a couple other companies created it in 2015. And I think the specification was released around 2017 or 2018. But it made sure all container runtimes can run images produced by build tool by creating these standards. So there's two main standards: the runtime specification of how you can run a file system bundle that's unpacked on a disk, and then the image specification, how to create an image that contains just enough information to launch the application on your system. But all in all, what this did, and why we see it so much when we're looking at information about Docker, is that it kind of led the way for various alternatives to be developed for containers, but they're all based on the standards of this OCI. Now, when we take a look at what engine we're using, especially when we're working with OCI compliant containers and images, I think it's super important to consider what engine we use and also why. So in its current state, and you probably heard about this or you work with this specifically, Docker has had a lot of long-standing concerns in the community, and it's for good reason. So the biggest is that you simply can't use Docker directly on your system. As we talked about before, you're only interacting with the client here, the CLI client on your system. So running a container with Docker means you've got to run the Docker daemon, and you've got to run it with root privileges, which can be a huge security concern. So this single Docker daemon, as we can see in the middle, after you've used the client part, is responsible for the state of all your containers and images. And say if there was an issue and it was interrupted, we would lose contact of all the containers and images in your system. But at the same time, while it's running and say there's no issue, it's using up valuable resources that we could probably be allocating somewhere else. And so these days, it's not the smartest thing to use a daemon, and having a large daemon on every host is a big concern for a lot of people, especially those working in the enterprise space. And then finally, as we can see here on the bottom right, and as you probably already know, for developers running Docker and Kubernetes, we know now that Docker shim is being depreciated, and now it's official with 1.24. So this is kind of forcing other alternatives to the Docker engine in Kubernetes. Now, this all goes to show that Docker isn't really the only container engine in the containerization ecosystem, and that maybe we kind of got to start looking at alternatives. But where are we to go? What alternatives are there that can build, manage, and run containers? I think that's a great question, and thankfully there are some tools that have been developed in the past few years that are a direct solution for this. These include these two guys on the right, Podman and Builda, both open source, and that I've personally switched over to. So the first of these is Podman. It's a daemonless, so we're not worried about that daemon anymore, and also rootless from a security perspective. Container engine that provides a great CLI for working with these containers. In fact, they based it off of the same commands as Docker. So any Docker push, pull, run, anything like that is also able to be done on Podman. And a lot of developers actually use an alias. So any Docker command that you're familiar with, writing and using would just be used on Podman. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. The biggest difference, though, is that it's interacting directly with the image registries, containers, image storage using the run C container runtime. And then it can also run pods, which helps when you're working with Kubernetes or just trying to learn Kubernetes. Secondly, the other alternative we have is Builda. So it's also daemonless, and it's a rootless tool to produce these same exact OCI compliant images that Docker does and that we're all familiar with. So you can build from Docker files, and we'll have a demo showing just exactly how to do that. But you can even start from scratch. So you can get an empty container and then add layers upon that just how you'd like. And so say you're concerned about security, you can create your own images and not have to worry about any third party or downloading images from, say, the Docker Hub or anything like that. Now, we know about these alternatives, but why would you switch over from Docker to Podman and Builda? And so before I show you the demo that I want to get through today, I just kind of want to answer, why would we switch over? So the first point that I have is that Docker, and this is one of the most important things, is kind of a monolithic tool. So when it was created almost a decade ago, it had a great approach of trying to combine everything into one tool. But nowadays, it's not as effective. So this large installation of Docker that you're putting on all your machines, the dependence of a daemon, it's kind of gotten to be enough of a problem for developers, and especially for myself, that now it's time to start looking maybe elsewhere for alternatives. To kind of you have a good knowledge about containerization, I think switching away from Docker can help us better understand what containers are. So we typically think of Docker containers and Docker registries, but at its core, it's just containers and it's just registries, and it's not Docker images, it's just images. So, learning other alternatives can help us understand more about the technology behind containerization and containers in general. And then finally, the industry is rapidly advancing, especially in our field. So preparing for what's next, adopting new technologies, it's all beneficial to push containerization forward. With Docker shim being depreciated, with Creo being the default runtime for Kubernetes, with Red Hat personally dropping support for Docker as a runtime engine because of security and daemon issues, and adopting Podman. So all of this, in addition to common things that I deal with personally, for example, Docker Desktop now switching towards a subscription service, It also takes 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM on my system for some reason. Docker Hub rate limits, pushing and pulling. Sometimes I get issues when I'm on like a shared network or something like that. But all of this is kind of reason to maybe switch from Docker to Podman and Builder. And so I want to talk about and actually show you guys how easy of a migration it is from Docker to alternatives that are rootless and also have no daemon. So we'll talk about and actually show you guys running containers. We'll do a little bit of building images from a Docker file. We'll push this image to a registry. So we'll go from our local system to the Docker Hub. And then maybe if we have some time, we'll use Skopeo to migrate these images from Docker Hub to Quay or any other image registry. So I'm going to go ahead quickly here and kind of change up my screen so you guys can see my terminal. Should just take 1 second here. So I'll go ahead and show you guys my terminal. I'm running a rail instance. Podman and Builder both run on any system. So I'll show you guys the installation process and everything here. So let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. So we should be good in the clear. Now I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just so you guys can see the commands that I'm typing. Awesome. Cool. So again, on my right, I've got a rail instance, and on the left, I'll kind of walk you guys through the installation of Podman. So I'm on a Mac system right now. Unfortunately, but I've SSH'd into this Linux instance. Even on Mac though, Podman, you can install it, you can work with it using something called Podman Machine. So Podman Machine kind of just creates a virtual machine on your Mac system, so you can run all the Podman commands from here. But installing on a Linux machine is super easy, no matter what your distro is. So we can double check that we've got this installed. So we'll do a Podman version. Oh, my bad. And double check that the install is complete. So cool, we've got Podman running now on this system. So the first step we really have to do to pull down an image and run that image is almost the exact same. This is so cool. It's almost the exact same as Docker. So we'll do, instead of Docker run, we'll just do a Podman run, detached, give it a port assignment of 8080. And then we'll go ahead and download the image. We'll just use a standard HTTPD to kind of give you guys a cool demo. I guess I've already downloaded it. Hold on. I will give it a second. Address is already in use. Okay, so I might have already, okay. So it looks like I already had the image downloaded just because I've already used this machine for a demo beforehand. But if we do a Podman PS, we can see the status of the container. So I'll make this a little bit bigger, and then I'll do this again. So if we were to clear this and do again, Podman PS, check the status. So we can see that we've got the image downloaded from the Docker Hub. The status is up right now. And to check this, we could do a curl command just to make sure that this container is running. So I believe should be, I need to do HTTPS. Sweet, cool. So we just did a curl command on the port assignment that we did for this specific container. And we can see now that it works. And this is just the standard response that we get back from Apache server. We could even say here on my left-hand side, I've got the public IP address of the system. So if we were to do, not HTTPS because it's not secure, but put in our port assignment, cool. So anybody from the show right now could check this right now and double check that it's working. So that's super cool. So that's how easy it is. If we go back here, just to download an image and run a container and do a curl command to make sure that works. So as far as running containers, Podman makes it super easy. Of course, when we just did all these commands, no daemon required, no root privileges required. If we were doing this on Docker, it'd be very different. But now we're able to do this, and we can do it super easy and super lightweight. As you saw, the Podman installation was super fast. So let's start taking a look at maybe building images though. So we can use Builder for that, as we talked about before, to build from a Docker file. And I'll actually show you guys the Docker file that we're using, and show how without using a daemon and without using root privileges, we can create this image. And then we'll do a little bit of work with the image to actually put it on a registry and make it public. So we'll wait for this to install, and we can double check that it's installed here in a second. We'll give it some time. But also, if we have some time and we get it on a image registry, we'll put it on an OpenShift instance and actually run it from there. So hopefully we have some time here. Looks like we've got about 10 minutes left. So just making sure this is running. It's only 80 megabytes almost, but it might be the install that's taking up a second. All right, here we go. Cool, sweet. So I'll do another clear. We'll check to make sure it's installed. Cool, we're good to go. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and clone a repository. What this is a super lightweight Flask demo. You guys know I like doing fun demos. So what this one is a web application that every time you refresh it, you get a different GIF of a cat. So here, go ahead and clone this, and I'll show you guys this, and we'll actually put it on the internet. So if you want to see it, you can. So cool. So what we can do is we can go ahead and CD into it, and I'll show you guys what's in there. So we've got this app.py file. We've got the Docker file, a folder of GIFs, and of course the requirements and for this Python file. So what we're really interested in is this Docker file, because we're going to be building an image from this. So this Docker file has a base image of Alpine. We're going to add and install Python, upgrade pip, install the modules with our requirements.txt app. We're going to copy the files that we need for it to run, and we're going to be using these GIFs in the GIF folder. We'll expose the port, and then we'll just do a simple command to run the application. So your pretty standard Docker file. This is pretty simple, but it kind of gives us a good baseline and a good way to kind of experience how how Builder can actually work with this Docker file. So all we've got to do to build this is pretty simple and pretty similar to how we would do it in Docker. So I'll go ahead and clear. So we'll do build a bud. Bud stands for build using Docker file. We'll give it a tag and say Flask app, and then we'll use our local directory where we've got this Docker file. So it's going to do everything that we saw in the Docker file for the steps. It'll build it from the base image. We're going to install Python. Looks like right now it's doing the dependencies, exposing the port, and running Python. And there we go. So now we have a new image on our system called localhost Flask app right here. So if we were to do, I'll clear it so you guys can see this, build images. Awesome. So cool. Don't worry about these that are from before. But what we're mainly taking a look at is this localhost Flask app that was created 18 seconds ago. It's the latest version. Now we have a super cool image on our localhost that we built personally without using a Docker daemon and without having root privileges. What we can do is we can use Podman now to run this image the same way we were doing it before, but instead of downloading an image, say from the Docker Hub, we can use the image that we just created. So we'll use the port assignment of 5000, allow it to access the GIF images that we had before. We're going to use the tag Flask app, since that's the one we gave here when we were using Builda, and we can go ahead and run this. And so this now means that I think if we do podman ps Cool. So remember beforehand, we only had this Docker image. Now we've got a localhost Flask app image that we just created from Builda. And now that's running. It's been up for 6 seconds now. And I think if we went back to our public IP address that we have out here for the system, instead of port 8080 for our HTTPD container, we're going to use 5000 that we've mapped it to. And so now we've got this super cool website on our left of different cat GIFs and images that'll refresh and give us a new one. So nothing too crazy, but I think it's a fun demo that I love showing. Cat getting a massage, all types of, sometimes it'll repeat. But now we've got, of course, this container running using Podman that we, created our own image. And say, now that we have this locally, say we want to put it somewhere, a lot of people are using the Docker Hub. So all we have to do is connect to Docker using our credentials. So we'll do Podman, login, Docker. And of course, we can do this using Quay, and I'll show that here in a second. We'll use my username, Cedric Clyburn, give it my password, and we're logged in. So all we have to do to actually push this image and put it on the Docker Hub is we'll do podman push, the tag that we have for our image, and then we'll give it a location. So we'll do docker.io/Cedric Clyburn, because I have access to this, and then Flask app for the name. Of course, we could change this to Flask app 5 or any name that we want when we actually, I said Flash app. Of course, it wasn't able to find it. All right, Flask app. Cool. So should take, a few seconds, but there we go. So we've got confirmation from our terminal. If we were to go to the Docker Hub here, this is before I refreshed. So if we went back in and we clicked my profile again, we should have, awesome. We have used Podman to push our image to the Docker Hub, and we've got it here right now. Say we want to, I don't know, maybe use the developer sandbox that everyone has free access to try to run this on an OpenShift cluster. We can go and log in. And of course, if you don't already have one of these, get in on this because they're super cool. You got 7 gigabytes of RAM, 15 gigabytes of storage, completely free. Just use your Red Hat account. And so let's log in here. Let's go back to Docker. So we can use this exact image on OpenShift. So say we go to add, and then we'll go to container image that we just created. We'll do docker.io/Cedric Clyburn, and we'll do Flask app. Cool. Oh, shoot. Well, dang, guys, it looks like we've reached our pull rate limit. And this is a thing that I see happening a lot, pulling from the Docker Hub now that we have these rate limits that are set from the past year. But there's no need to worry. Since Docker started enforcing rate limits, we've got this extra tool that's part of the Podman Builda family called Skopeo, which you guys might have used before. And what it allows us to do is copy images from different registries over to new registries. So super, super simple, and it's super fast. What we'll go ahead and do so that I can show you guys this on my OpenShift cluster before we hop off here. And before we get some questions, is we'll do Skopeo. And so we'll install this, super lightweight. And all we've got to do is log in. Since we've already logged into Docker, we'll just log into Quay. So Skopeo, login, Quay.io. I'll give it my credentials. So C. Clyburn, and then my password. Okay, cool. So all we have to do, we can inspect images, which is one of the biggest features. You don't have to pull down an image. You can inspect it remotely, but we'll copy it over. So we'll do Skopeo copy, and so we'll get the location of it. So Docker, it's on my account, Flask app, and then latest, and then we'll move it over to Quay. So we'll do Quay.io, give it my account, and then Flask app, and also latest. Oh, looks like I haven't logged in on Skopeo to um, Podman, or sorry, not Podman, Docker. So we'll do that real quick. Um, oh, yeah, sorry about that. My usernames are different from Docker to Quay, so I'll change that real quick. Cedric Clyburn. Cool. So now you'll see it same way we kind of saw it through Podman. But now if I check my Quay account, and I'll make this full screen so you can see it, and I refresh here, we should have the new image that I just copied over um, from the Docker Hub. So it's super cool. Um, Currently, as soon as you upload, they're private on Quay, so I just made it public so we can get it. If we go back, here's the last step in our demo. If we go back here, and now that it's on Quay that we've copied it over, um, we could do Quay .io. Oh, there it is. It's already up there. Slash C Clyburn slash Flask app. As you can see, it's validated. It auto-populated a lot of our fields. We don't really have to change anything. Gave a target port that we already showed in the Docker file, and it's going to create a row. A route. Oh, did I already create one? I might have to delete it. Hold on. Let me go back here. Go back to container images. QUI slash C Clyburn. Might have already created it. I don't think so. All right, cool. Step two, maybe. Maybe I have to change the name. Cool. All right, sweet. And so within a few seconds, this should be live and running. So we can see that in our project. Everyone has access to the developer sandbox. So if you want to run this demo by yourself, it's super fun. But all we have to do is open the route that's already been created. And so now we can see it's hosted on our OpenShift cluster. We've got this nice URL that was already made for us. We didn't have to configure anything. And this is now, available to the public, just like any other application would be if we were running it from, OpenShift. So that is pretty much everything that I wanted to show you guys within Podman and Builda and Skopeo. I just want to say a few things before. This talk isn't made to persuade you to completely ditch Docker. Docker has so many advantages and it's such an incredible tool and great for learning. But I just want to show you the larger tool landscape for working with containers, distributing containers, running them. Every tool has its pros and cons, but having alternatives is always a good thing. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all being here. I'll send these slides out, but yeah, thanks guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Cedric, for the presentation, for the super cool demos with Podman, Buda, and Skopeo and other stuff. And we do have a lot of questions in the chat. Let me try to read some of them for you. So the first one, Yogesh is asking, do Docker machine drivers for creating Docker hosts for public clouds like AWS, Azure, GCP works as is with Podman and Buda?
So do Docker machine drivers for creating the Docker host. So Podman and Builda, the being daemonless, I think that's what you're asking for. They don't have the daemon that needs to be installed. They run directly. They work with containers directly using the run C runtime. So I think not sure if I understand exactly what you're talking about, but
Yeah, I think maybe, if I understood correctly as well, uh, maybe if they work, like they don't work because with Podman, you don't need a Docker host. Like
yeah,
Docker, traditional Docker uses client-server architecture, so you have the Docker CLI and the Docker host. With Podman, you have daemonless uh, application, so you don't need a host to run it. So you don't need a Docker machine driver because you don't need a Docker host. So if it would work, it wouldn't because it doesn't need one.
yep. That's what I was thinking. And so it wouldn't matter what cloud you're running on, because it'll be the same no matter what.
Yeah, as long as it's running Linux, you should be good.
or Mac or Windows.
Hmm.
Very very portable.
True. And another one from Yogesh. Do Podman and Buda support Windows native containers?
Yes. Yep. Yep. So I personally, haven't tried it, but there is support for it. If you go to both the Podman or the Builder websites, I think there's instructions on how to do that. But I've seen it done before, and we've got I think a blog or two on the developer website on like how to do that. And then say if you're on Mac, Mac only supports Podman, not Builder. But yeah, there's support.
I mean, do they support the Podman CLI or they can run Windows containers?
The CLI, yeah, is supported, so you can do
Oh,
everything.
okay. So yeah,
Windows native containers, if you're just talking about specifically that, I've never
yeah,
tried.
because I'm wondering, what? But I might be wrong. We might be wrong, but I think that Podman doesn't support Windows containers yet. Like you can run the Podman CLI on Windows, I suppose, but Windows
Mhm.
containers, the big fat Windows containers that can run on Windows machines, I'm not sure. I don't think it's supported. I
I
just
haven't tried it.
Yeah, I just found a GitHub
Definitely.
issue like on Podman support Windows containers, which was open in October 25th, 2020, and it's still open. So
We'll
maybe not.
see. We'll see about that. But yeah, the support is there for the working with it in the CLI. I've never tried Windows native containers. Um, I don't know if I will try it,
Mhm.
but hopefully they do go back to that issue, and maybe we'll see some update in the future for that.
Cool. Let's see another one. What are the use cases of using Buda and Podman outside of direct CLI? Like, for example, CI/CD pipelines and any other things?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, man. The biggest use cases, so apart from the demo that we just did, would be within Kubernetes, within say Jenkins, or anything else that would help you when you're creating these pipelines. There's a lot of resources out there on how to just like completely replace Docker with or Builda when it comes to building the images in the pipeline process. Hopefully, I write a blog here soon about actually like, working with pipelines and Builda and all that. But yeah, especially within the building images part, Builda has been pretty widely adopted for Kubernetes and for Jenkins. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think the main advantage again of Podman and Buda is that sometimes you have like a Tecton pipeline or you have a Jenkins pipeline, and you can't or you don't want to install a Docker host on the machine. So by being daemonless, I think it's the huge advantage that Podman and Buda has over Docker.
exactly. Yep. Great question.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the question. And another one here, Joel is asking, can I run these on a Kubernetes cluster? Is there any are there any relevant changes in a deployment YAML file?
Yes, so you can definitely run whether it's Podman, Builda, or some of the other tools that are developed that are kind of solving this issue for running daemonless. Um, I haven't personally done it with and worked with the deployment.yaml for Podman specifically. Um, but yeah, it's able to be run, especially for Builda for this part of like building images. Um, yeah,
Hmm. Cool. Yeah. Well, once you have the container, I suppose like it's you can use it anywhere inside a Kubernetes cluster. So, and the next one from Joe again is it possible to push images to a local Docker registry? I suppose yes, but can you confirm or deny?
it is possible. Whether it's and especially Skopeo. I didn't get to talk enough about that, but that also allows you to do a lot with. with the registries from that standpoint. But yeah, you can push images to a local Docker registry, any public registry, even the ones that I didn't talk about today. Docker Hub and Quay. Say there's like I think there's the GitHub image registry, stuff like that. Yeah, there's support for all of that.
Mhm. I think the difference might be that if you're running Docker host already has a built-in Docker registry. If you're using Podman, do you have a local Docker registry as well?
By local Docker, like just a local registry.
Yeah, local registry. We do, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. We were showing that before with like Podman PS and then build images. I guess you can't see my screen anymore, but you've got your local registry, and then from there you can take images and push them.
Cool. Then we're covered.
Hey,
Yeah, yes, I think that was the last question. So lots of interesting questions. Thank you. And
yeah.
thank you,
I want to
Cedric.
follow up on the Kubernetes question. Hopefully, I make a blog here soon in the next few weeks on doing it within Kubernetes. For this talk I just did specifically, like locally running the CLI and everything. But I think that'd be great to do a demo on that.
Hmm. Yes, and if you go to the developers.redhat.com website or to the Red Hat Developer YouTube channel, like Cedric is contributing a lot of stuff, and you'll be able to read what he's writing or watch him on another amazing video. So, but for today, I'd like to thank you for watching this and thank you, Cedric, for this amazing presentation one more time. Please remember, Cedric, you're always welcome. Whenever you have great content to show, we're more than happy to host you here at the DevNation Tech Talks.
Absolutely, and thank you guys all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
Cool.